Welcome, welcome. All right, well, thank you all for joining. I might give it one more minute to see if a few more people join today, but thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Okay, great. Well, like I said, thanks everyone for joining. I hope everyone's having a good start to your week. If you don't know me yet, my name's Mercedes, and I'm an environmental health organizer at Clean Water Action. I use she, her pronouns. And today we have a very special guest, Nick Gayton from the Philadelphia Water Department, who's going to be presenting. Do just want to let you all know that I will still be sending the recording of last week's webinar out. So if you haven't got that, don't worry, I haven't sent it yet. We're still kind of working out some of the kinks with that. And so just know you will still get that from me, and you'll be getting this recording after this presentation as well. So I'll go and start presenting. So to give a quick overview, what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to start with a quick introduction about Clean Water Action, our lead hazard awareness program, and then I'll introduce our speaker. And then next, Nick will take over to do the lead and drinking water presentation. And then I'll quickly share my screen again to give some next steps, and then we'll open up for any questions that you all have. And thank you so much to anyone who saw this piece of the presentation last week. I want to repeat a couple things just in case anybody wasn't here and missed it. So to give a quick explanation of Clean Water Action, I always tell people we're an environmental advocacy organization. We got started with the passing of the 1972 Clean Water Act, and since then we've been doing local, state, and federal environmental advocacy, and we have offices in maybe 8 other states who also do local, state, and federal work there as well. In Pennsylvania specifically, we're mostly focused on environmental justice and pretty much anything trash related, zero waste, ending legal dumping, stuff like that. On the legislative side, we have a few key bills that we're working on right now. So first, we have a bill that would get lead-free water in Pennsylvania schools. It would do that by replacing any old, potentially lead-containing drinking fountains with new lead filtering hydration stations. Next, we have an environmental justice bill that would bring protections to communities that face cumulative environmental impacts. And then next, we have one that would protect firefighters by banning PFAS from firefighting foam. Grace is going to put a link to an action to take on those in the chat if you want to read more or if you want to take an online action. Grace is going to put that link in the chat. And then in addition to legislation, a big piece of Clean Water Action in Philadelphia is our community programs. So first, we have our Resilient Communities Stormwater Initiative that works with underserved communities to take old lots to turn them into green space and stormwater infrastructure. Next, we have our Rethink Disposable program, where we work with food service operators to help them switch from any single-use disposable to reusable alternatives, and we provide funding for that switch. And then next, our lead hazard awareness program that's bringing y'all the webinar today. So that program is a community outreach program that has the mission of empowering residents to both identify and live safely with the existence of lead hazards in their homes and communities. And there's a couple key pillars of this program. First, we have 20-minute living safely with lead presentations. If you're a part of like a neighborhood advisory group or a nonprofit or any group that meets regularly, we can come give these 20-minute presentations. You might be here because you saw one and we shout out the webinar. If so, thank you. If not, feel free to reach out to me and we can get one scheduled. Next, we're always happy to, if you have like a resource fair or an event where you want folks tabling, we're always happy to table and give out materials and resources to residents. But yeah, of course, have our webinar series. And then next, we're working with UPenn, their Center for Excellence in Environmental Toxicology, to help them fill in their lead and soil map. I'm also going to have Grace put the link to that in the chat if anyone is not familiar. And then next I'm gonna kick it over to Nick to talk about lead in drinking water. He's currently a community outreach specialist with the Philadelphia Water Department, specializing in green stormwater infrastructure, plumbing and water quality, and data analysis. And yeah, I'll just kick it over to you to get us started with the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ms. Louise.
Yeah, of course.
All right, let me just share my screen. And can everyone hear me and see this presentation okay? Great,
Yeah.
cool. Awesome, let's get started. Big sec. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Gayton, and I am a community outreach specialist with the Philadelphia Water Department. I'll be giving this lead presentation today, and thanks so much for allowing us the space to present this. The presentation is about 15 minutes long. It's a decent amount of information to get through, but I hope I can take all of your questions at the end too. But let's get started. All right, so first and foremost, I want to start off by saying that the water PWD delivers to you is safe to drink and does not contain lead. If lead is detected in drinking water, it comes from the property's plumbings, not our rivers or water mains. We have a proud history of dealing with lead in terms of research and testing and treatment, and it's one of the main reasons why we do not have a lead and water crisis in this city. Every division across PWD has been involved with developing and implementing PWD's lead plumbing and water quality programs, including planning and environmental services divisions, public affairs, and many more. And today we're going to talk about three main things. The first, we'll talk about what is a service line and why it's relevant to our discussion here, and what to do if your buried part of your service line is categorized as unknown. Actions to protect your water, what PWD does and what you can do, and options for replacing your service line if it is confirmed to be lead. All right. So we take lead very seriously at PWD, and that's for a specific reason. Exposure to lead can cause health effects for all ages, especially pregnant women and small children. The most common source of exposure in the city is from peeling lead paint or lead dust in yards, not from lead in water. And I just want to be clear again, there is no lead plumbing crisis in the city. And what that really comes down to for why that is because of our rigorous treatment, testing, and ongoing research process that ensures the water we deliver to the city of Philadelphia meets federal standards and is safe to drink. And that's why we like to be out at places like this or web series like this or out in the community to make sure we share this information with the people of Philadelphia. And although we know this may be a lot of information to process, we like to view this next collective phase in our water history as really the beginning of the end of lead plumbing in the city of Philadelphia. So where does lead come from, since it doesn't come from the water we deliver to your homes? If there is lead in your water at your home, it could come from three main sources: older fixtures from the 1990s or before, soldered joints from before 1989, and a section of your service line from the 1950s or older. And this is why we are primarily talking about the service line. PWD is focusing on that mainly now because the service line is essentially a section of your home's plumbing that connects your house directly to the water main. And you can see it represented here. It comes in, and this section of it is buried, and it connects into the bottom of your basement into your water meter. So how we categorize service lines is what we're going to talk about in this section, and what to do if you have an unknown service line categorization. So due to new federal regulations, many people in the city of Philadelphia have received a letter from us letting them know the status of their service line material. We sent all of these letters out last fall, and all of the public water utilities across the country needed to do this. Those four categorizations are lead, galvanized, non-lead, and unknown. And we classify these service lines as unknown when we don't have records for them. So at this point, you may be asking or thinking about two main questions. Why don't we have records, and what to do if you have an unknown service line categorization? And to answer the first question, it's not that we don't have records. We have extensive plumbing records, but stricter requirements make classifying service lines as non-lead more complex now, especially since homeowners have historically always owned their service lines. And it also becomes more complex when you think about the service line as it is. So as I talked about a little bit earlier, we have this one section that is actually exposed, and then we have this larger section down here that connects to the main that is buried. And just because the exposed section of your service line is not lead does not mean that any section of the buried service line is also not lead. So as you can see, that adds a lot of complexity to trying to identify which pipes need to be replaced and contain lead. A large part of the efforts so far is the creation of a service line map, and you can see the link to it on the screen there. This map shows the status of all service lines in the city. And if you take a look at the map, you'll see a lot of them are listed as unknown. And you can type in your address or the address of any residents in the city of Philadelphia to see what we have their service line categorized as. But we don't want that to alarm you, the amount of unknowns that are categorized out there. Despite most service lines being classified as unknown, PWD only actually estimates that around 5% of service lines are likely to be lead. And that leads me into the second question, what to do if you have an unknown service line categorization. So, like I said, we only estimate about 5% of unknown categorizations. But if you have an unknown service line, for additional safety, we recommend you treat it like it could be lead. And what you can do for that is a process called flushing. We will get into flushing in a little bit more detail in the next section, but essentially it's the action of flushing out that sitting water in your home's pipes if it's been sitting in your home's plumbing for longer than 6 hours. In addition to flushing, you can also self-report your service line material if you know what it's made of through your own records. And you can do that by visiting that website with that service line map, and you can send us a message directly through there. And you can think about it like this. So since the property owner has historically always owned the service line in the city of Philadelphia, if somebody has bought in their house within the last, like 10, 15 years or recently and had some work done and a lead service line was discovered and replaced, PWD might not know that. So providing those records can really help us narrow down which service line pipes need to be replaced and which ones don't. So in this section, we will spend the next few slides talking about what PWD currently does to protect your water from lead plumbing and how you can take some additional precautions for some extra peace of mind. For over the last 25 years, PWD has used a proven protection method of corrosion control called zinc orthophosphate. But what is corrosion control and what is zinc orthophosphate? In the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, there is a diagram of two pipes demonstrating what corrosion control is and how we use zinc orthophosphate to achieve it. Zinc orthophosphate is a proven safe chemical that's added to your water during the treatment process. It prevents your pipes and PWD's pipes from degrading over time due to corrosion. It travels through our piping system and into your home's pipes and then coats them with a protective layer to help stop corrosion. The reason why this is important to our discussion about lead is because lead dissolves in water. So if you have lead pipes in your home, this protection method helps prevent lead from entering into your water. We know it works also because we test regularly. Even in homes with lead service lines, PWD sees our corrosion control methods working by keeping lead levels below limits. So what can you do for extra peace of mind? For additional protection against lead, potentially in your home's plumbing, PWD recommends a proven practice known as flushing. But again, what is flushing? So flushing is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's the process of running your water before use if your water has been sitting in your home's plumbing for longer than 6 hours. It's meant to flush out that sitting water from your home's plumbing system. As we previously discussed, lead dissolves in water, so that the longer that water sits in your pipes, the potential for exposure does increase. For example, imagine you are at work or you're asleep or just out of your house for longer than 6 hours that day. the water in your home's plumbing has just been sitting in there. Flushing your pipes for 3 to 5 minutes by running the cold water before use pulls in that fresh moving water in from the water main. And for additional peace of mind and protection, flushing costs only about pennies a day, estimated about $30 a year. So here on this next slide, we have an animation demonstrating how flushing works. For explaining this diagram, let's assume that this is my house. So for the quote unquote sitting water, that is going to be represented by this light blue here. And for the fresh moving water from the main, that's going to be represented by that darker blue right there. So for context, I do live in the city of Philadelphia in a row home, and my service line material is categorized as unknown. So even though I know the corrosion control methods that PWD uses works and that it's still very unlikely that I have a lead service line, for extra peace of mind, I simply flush my pipes twice a day before use. Now let's see how this works. So, we come in, we turn on the cold water. I wake up in the morning or I come home from work and I just turn on that sink faucet. And as you can see, we now see that fresh moving water in dark blue had moved in that pipe and has come out of the sink and down the drain. And it's as simple as that. It pushes out that sitting water and it pushes it down the drain and draws in that fresh, constantly moving water in from the water main. I want to note that also in this example, the flushing takes, only a few seconds, but in real time, the process does take about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on your home's distance from the nearest water main. So I've talked about flushing, what it is, why do we do it, but how do we know that flushing works? And we know it works because we test. And we test, when we test two different samples, one with water that has been sitting in pipes and one with water after flushing for 3 to 5 minutes. Most homes do not show any levels of lead in either sample. And for homes with known lead plumbing, the levels of lead in water are usually not detectable after flushing for the recommended time. So again, we know flushing works because we test. So in preparation for this presentation and in developing it and for the service line letters we sent out last fall, we did a lot of prep work and received a lot of questions back. This slide talks about 3 major questions that we are frequently asked. The first is notably about cost, which we talked about a little bit, and what the cost of flushing is. Our estimates suggest that flushing really only does cost pennies a day, and compared to filters that say they can filter out lead at roughly $40 to $60 per year, flushing is certainly a cost-effective alternative. The second question is about conservation and if flushing is wasteful. For this, I'll just use myself as an example again pretty quickly. Any use of water in my house or your house for that matter helps with flushing out that standing water after it's been sitting there for longer than 6 hours. And you may already be doing some of these things. Things like running the water to take a shower or doing laundry with cold water all help flush your pipes to remove that sitting water. In short, in order to prevent waste, if it's on your mind, try to harness the ways that you are already using water to help conserve some. And the last question deals with clarity regarding the time frame of how long to flush. So we recommend 3 to 5 minutes, and we say that because proper flushing technique depends on how far your property is from the water main. If your house sits further back from the street, you may want to flush closer to that 5-minute mark. If your house sits closer to the curb, like a row home, flushing closer to that 3-minute mark is probably fine to do. And lastly, we discussed previously that the 3 to 5 minute range is where PWD sees the successful results when we test. So that's how we know. And finally, in this last section, we will discuss what PWD initiatives exist for replacing lead service lines or galvanized service lines, and options for customers who have confirmed that lead or galvanized service line status. So on this slide, we'll discuss what PWD initiatives currently exist regarding lead service line replacement. But first, let me just give a little context. So due to recent federal regulation changes, PWD has been tasked with developing and implementing a plan to help reduce all known lead service lines in the city of Philadelphia over the next decade or so. We are developing the framework of those plans now. It is very ambitious, but definitely achievable. And to meet that goal, we will certainly need the cooperation of property owners and residents throughout the process. One of our biggest challenges, like I discussed previously, is identifying which service lines need to be replaced and which service lines don't, due to the complexity of the buried service line section and the exposed service line section. And despite having extensive plumbing records, stricter requirements make classifying service lines as non-lead more complex, especially since the homeowners have historically always owned the service lines. That verification process, if we were to dig up all of the unknown service lines, would be extremely costly and extremely disruptive. Um, this point underscores that importance of working together with PWD and letting us know if you have records of any recent replacements of lead service lines, or you have records that say and confirm that your service line is not lead or galvanized material. And like I said, please reach out to us and let us know that. Currently, when PWD is doing water main work, if we discover a lead or galvanized service line leading into your homes, we actually replace it for free. To do this for free, PWD needs property owners to sign a permission form. So if you receive one of those in the mail, or it is handed to you by one of our contractors, our construction contractors, please sign it and return it to us as quickly as you can after you review it. So what if you have a confirmed lead or galvanized service line already? What are your options now? So on this slide are two potential options you can utilize to replace your service line now. The first is a PWD's Homeowner Emergency Loan Program, or HELP for short. In a few words, HELP is a program that offers zero interest loans to qualifying customers interested in replacing their confirmed lead or galvanized service line. Please keep in mind that this is not for somebody like me with an unknown service line categorization. It would need to be confirmed as either lead or galvanized material before I could utilize this program. The second option is to simply replace through a private plumber that you would hire. A licensed and insured plumber can provide an estimate for you once it's chosen. The cost of replacement can vary, but typically ranges between $6,000 to $12,000. The price varies depending on the number of different factors. However, a main factor is the length of that service line leading into your home. And lastly, we discussed a lot of information here today, and we hope it was useful. And but we understand it can be a lot to take in at once. We always like to recommend this to best stay informed about these very dynamic information, this very dynamic information about lead we talked about today or in the future. Please sign up with PWD's lead information list to receive our latest updates and resources about lead plumbing and water quality. And it can be delivered directly to your inbox. You can scan that QR code right there on the screen, or you can visit that website link right there, and it'll allow you to sign up with your email or phone number. And honestly, that is it today for this presentation. I'd love to take any questions or hear any comments or concerns that anybody might have. So I'll hand it back to Mercedes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you so much for giving us the presentation. I'm going to quickly go over next steps, and then we can open it up for questions. Share my screen again really quick. Okay, so next steps, want to shout out the next webinar sessions coming up next week, same time. We're going to have the lead and soil and dust presentation. The following week will be lead and renovation, repair and paint, and then the last week will be on tenants' rights and Philadelphia's lead abatement law. Look out in your email again for resources from me. I'm going to be sending the previous presentation slides and recordings, and the same with this one. And then I'll be sending any other living safely with lead materials that I think would be helpful. And then in the meantime, also you can be taking action. So the link that Grace already put in the chat will have clean water actions, lead-free water bill that you can take an online action on. And then the lead-free promise project is also working on a bill that would ensure that kids are getting tested twice before the age of 2 to see if they have lead poisoning. And so those are two great bills you can take action on. But that's pretty much it. Other than that, we just want to let y'all know if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand and I can call on you so you can come off mute, ask in the chat, or contact us at our emails if you have any other questions. So yeah, want to open it up now to anyone that has questions.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Nick. Um, I'm curious what the next, I don't want to give like an exact time frame, but what the next few years look like in the development of uh, water infrastructure, for lack of a better word. Is there anything coming up, changes that might that we should know about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you mean within the context of lead?
Yeah,
PWD is, yeah. So
in the context of that.
yeah, so like I talked about in the presentation, PWD is charged with the due to the federal regulation changes with helping to replace the all of the known and now unknown that we currently have in the city lead service lines over the next 10 years, and then it has to be completed, I believe, by 2037. So we are in the process right now of looking into one, how to identify those unknown lead service lines in a non-disruptive and cost-effective way. Because like I talked about, like the aspect of having to dig up hundreds of thousands of properties to try to identify um, if they are lead or non-lead would be extremely disruptive and costly. So we are currently in the process of trying to see or figure out a way to do that. And I'd say that's definitely within the pipeline of the next few years. But there's definitely a lot of dynamic change as well. So uh, I always like to say keep informed by just signing up for our email list. And we send out email blasts regularly with all of the up-to-date information about what's going on. But thanks, that's a great question.
Yeah, I can't put my hand down, but I know there's a couple questions in the chat too, so.
Okay. Oren, are you actually able to read the ones that are in the chat? I can't see the chat anymore since I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Noah Buncher said a few minutes ago, how can you be confident that there's no lead in Philadelphia's drinking water if the majority of service lines contain the unknown amounts of lead?
So it's not that the service lines contain an unknown amount of lead, it's that the material that they're made up of is currently unknown. And we estimate that out of all of the service lines that we've classified as unknown, only about 5% of those currently we estimate are probably lead. So although the amount of service lines that we have classified as unknown is the majority of them, we only estimate about 5% of those are lead. And the water that we deliver to homes before it even enters in a property owner's service line does not contain lead at all. The water that we deliver through the water mains is 100% safe to drink. But that's a great question too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Kevin asks, do you have any information or advice on use of metal filtering water pitchers in the home for people with known or unknown lead service lines?
Absolutely. So, great question as well. So we just simply recommend that you try to, or you make sure that you get a National Sanitation Foundation filter if you do look at any type of filters, and make sure it has that logo on it, and make sure that it specifically says that it can remove lead. Uh, it's difficult. There are a lot of ones out there that are unregulated, and it can get a little confusing sometimes trying to figure out which ones to specifically buy. But the best advice that PWD has is to try to utilize some state resources. They do have a list of some. They do have some information on this as well, and I believe it is the National Sanitation Foundation also. Um, but just make sure it has that label on there. It should say NSF.
Great. And then one more from Lydia. They say if the map indicates that row homes adjoining yours have lead service lines, is it safe to assume yours does as well?
So no, actually, and that's an interesting question because the one next to my home does have confirmed lead. But think about it like this: like properties have been around in the city of Philadelphia for some quite a long time. And just because one might have had some plumbing work done, before you ever moved in, but within the last 10 years, or within the last 35 years from when they've stopped using lead plumbing, or 60, 70 years from when they stopped using lead plumbing to make service lines. So just because the one that's next to you, adjacent to yours, is confirmed lead does not necessarily mean that yours is lead. But still, we recommend that if you're classified as unknown, flush your pipes. It is a proven safe way to help reduce your risk to lead exposure. It works. We know it works because we test. It's cost effective, and it is just generally something that we advise for um, like water quality improvements to begin with, even if lead wasn't a concern in your home. Flushing is just a good practice to do. Awesome.
Okay, great. Yeah, if anyone else has questions, feel free to. Oh, Daniel, your question.
Hey, Nick, great work. I work with Nick. Great job. Just chiming in very quickly, Nick, and everyone to say NSF is National Science Foundation, just very quickly. But nice work. Thanks, everybody. Nick, amazing job.
Thanks. Just to note, our PWD's fact sheet does say National Sanitation Foundation.
Gotcha. Sorry, my apologies.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If you are someone that is either like that either your pipes or fixtures have lead in them, or if you're just wanting to flush your pipes, like flushing your water daily just to be safe, what are things that you would say like are safe before flushing, and what are things that you would maybe like wait to do until you flush your water?
Um, so sorry, I'm not understanding the question. Could you ask it a different way? Are you saying because there's like different faucets in your house and stuff like that, like, or if you're using your
Um,
laundry and things, like it's okay to use
I'm
your.
I'm asking like what activities with water are okay to do before you've flushed it for the day? Because I know that you said like you can like run your dishwasher, like flushing your toilet, like that stuff is all fine. But like, what are activities that you would just like recommend to wait until after flushing?
Primarily just drinking. Yeah, primarily just drinking. And like that's like I said, I literally when I wake up in the morning and I first thing I do is I go downstairs, start making breakfast, and I literally just pop on my sink faucet for about like 3.5 minutes is what I do because the row home is very close to the main. And it's fresh, it's cold, the water in the main is constantly moving, and you can kind of tell when it hits that peak cool temperature in a way. So yeah.
Okay.
It's a great question, though. Yeah. Anything essentially that uses cold water. For a shower, it's kind of different because if you think of your hot water tank, that actually is storing water already. So it would still eventually pull something from the water main, but it would have to, of course, exhaust that entire water heater before it gets to that point. So
Any other questions? Okay, cool. We can give it just another quick minute in case anyone has a question. But always feel free to reach out to me or Nick over email if you have any follow-up questions. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much all we have today. But just one more reminder of feel free to tune into our webinar at the same time next week if you want to learn more about lead and soil and dust. And then, like I said, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and then I will be following up with more information and the recording and slides from this presentation.
thanks so much, everyone.
Of course. All right, well, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining in. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.